So I want you to think back for a second um, to the very last wedding you went to.
Oh, this is gonna be good.
Right. Just try to describe the dinner you had. Like, genuinely, can you remember it at all?
Probably not. I mean, usually it's just, a blur of lukewarm vegetables.
Exactly. Or like the classic chicken or beef scenario where you get this slightly overcooked piece of chicken next to just the most perfectly uniform scoop of mashed potatoes you've ever seen.
It's almost impressive how uniform they get it.
Yeah, it really is. Or even worse, right? The standard buffet line. You're just shuffling along with a plate, try to scoop up some pasta salad without dropping your dinner roll on the floor.
Which is wild when you think about the money involved. I mean, the wedding industry generated tens of billions of dollars last year.
Tens of billions.
Yeah, we are spending luxury car money on these events, and yet the centerpiece, the actual meal, is famously terrible.
It's historically bad.
Well, the catering industry has essentially coasted on having a captive audience for decades. Like, you're trapped at table 14, you're making awkward small talk, so you just eat whatever they put in front of you.
You have literally no other choice.
Right. But looking at the source material we're diving into today, that paradigm is violently shifting.
It's completely changing.
Exactly. We're observing what is basically the death of the traditional catering playbook. The modern couple is just rejecting this idea of mere sustenance. They want actual hospitality and they want entertainment.
And that brings us to our mission for this deep dive.
Yeah.
We are going to explore this one massive, very specific trend that is just burning that old playbook to the ground. Literally burning.
I see what you did there.
I try. We're talking about the absolute explosion of wood-fired pizza stations at luxury wedding receptions.
It is everywhere right now.
It really is. So we're going to deconstruct the psychology of why this specific food is taking over. We'll look at the intense culinary science and logistics you need to actually pull it off.
Which are significant, by the way.
Oh, absolutely. And we'll also examine how this digital platform, Weddizer, is essentially acting as the software architecture for this whole movement. Like, they're the ones turning all this unstructured inspiration into an executable reality for people.
I think establishing that scope early on is so vital because, analyzing our sources, this isn't just a conversation about a popular menu item.
Right. It's way bigger than just pizza.
Exactly. It's a fundamental sociological shift in how we gather, how we celebrate, and how we signal status, really. It's this intersection of modern culinary trends, thoughtful event design, and honestly, the necessity of algorithmic digital planning. Because we are in an era of just total information overload.
Okay, let's unpack the status signaling aspect first.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to be honest, when I first saw the words pizza and luxury wedding reception right next to each other, I had some severe cognitive dissonance.
That's a very normal reaction, yeah.
I mean, the source text explicitly emphasizes that wood-fired pizza stations strike a perfect balance between laid-back and luxurious. But pizza is, like, inherently messy. It's tactile.
You eat it with your hands.
Right. You eat it with your hands. It's Friday night takeout. So if you're throwing an event that costs hundreds of dollars per head, isn't serving pizza kind of like wearing sneakers with a tuxedo?
The sneakers with a tuxedo analogy is actually a perfect diagnostic tool for what's happening here. Just maybe not in the way you originally meant it.
Oh, really? How so?
Well, think about how high-end fashion has evolved over the last decade or so. Like, a billionaire today is way more likely to wear an unmarked, incredibly expensive cashmere hoodie and designer sneakers than a traditional three-piece suit.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's entirely true.
The whole definition of luxury has fundamentally shifted. It's moved away from this strict, uncomfortable formality towards something that is highly curated but comfortable, bespoke comfort, basically.
So true luxury isn't about exclusivity or rigid rules anymore. Like, no one cares if you know which of the 3 forks to use for your salad.
Right, exactly. It is about curated authenticity now.
So the luxury isn't the object itself, it's the execution of the object. Like the difference between mass market utility and artisan intention.
Precisely. And the source text points directly to how this is achieved in the culinary space. It's the inclusion of artisan ingredients and specialized cooking methods that elevates the whole experience to fine dining levels.
So it's not dominoes rolling up to a ballroom.
No, not at all. We are talking about the complete transformation of a familiar, comforting format, but looked at through a very high-end culinary lens.
Yeah, makes sense.
The couples choosing this route, they want to offer a relaxed yet elegant vibe because they realize their guests don't actually want to sit stiffly in a chair for 3 hours.
Nobody wants that.
Right. The modern guest wants to feel deeply comfortable, but they simultaneously want to feel indulged.
Which is an incredibly difficult psychological needle to thread, if you think about it. You want the monumental weight and the elegance of a milestone event, right? But you also want the warmth and ease of, like, a dinner party in your own backyard.
It is a massive challenge for event designers.
It really makes me want to ask you, the listener, to really interrogate your own dining preferences for a second. When you go out to celebrate something truly special, do you actually crave the rigid formality of a traditional sit-down meal?
Most people don't when they really think about it.
Right. Or are you drawn more to the relaxed luxury of artisan dining, where the quality of the ingredients is just exceptional, but the atmosphere is completely unpretentious?
And that psychological pivot is exactly what removes the pretension without sacrificing the quality. It basically democratizes the luxury experience.
By making it accessible through something familiar.
Yes. You take a format everyone subconsciously associates with comfort and safety, which is pizza, and you inject it with truffles, artisanal cheeses, and master-level cooking technique.
It completely short-circuits your brain's expectation of formal dining.
Exactly. But the sources suggest the food itself is really only half the equation here. It is not just about what ends up on the wooden paddle.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because the material notes that guests don't just eat, they engage. The actual preparation of the food is elevated to the level of event entertainment.
It's performance art, in a way.
Totally. We are talking about live, elemental cooking. Imagine walking into a reception and instead of those sad steel chafing dishes hiding in a dark corner.
Ugh, the sternos.
Yes, the sternos. Instead of that, you are confronted with the warm, flickering glow of a real wood fire. You can smell the wood smoke mixed with the aroma of baking dough.
That smell is intoxicating.
It really is. And you're watching a skilled artisan physically stretching the dough, building the pie right there, and sliding it into this roaring oven.
What's fascinating here is the concept of the theatrical element that's mentioned in the source. Because historically, the kitchen has always been a hidden space at formal events.
Almost like a shameful space.
Yeah.
Sequestered behind swinging doors.
Exactly. It's viewed as a chaotic, purely functional zone. But bringing the kitchen out of the back room and directly into the reception space, that fundamentally alters the sociology of the room.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
We are essentially returning to the concept of the hearth. I mean, for millennia, human beings have naturally congregated around fire. It's an elemental gathering point.
And it changes the entire architecture of guest interaction. Think about a typical wedding reception. There was always that deeply awkward transitional period cocktail hour or right before dinner.
Where everyone is just milling around.
Yeah, milling around. They might not know many other guests, and they're essentially just waiting for some authority figure to tell them what to do and where to sit. But a live fire cooking station acts as an immediate, organic icebreaker.
It gives people a shared focal point that doesn't require forced conversation, which is huge.
It's so much better than talking about the weather.
Right. Suddenly, guests aren't just passively waiting for a waiter to drop a plate in front of them. They are an active, engaged audience.
Yeah, they're standing near the warmth of the oven watching the process.
They ask questions of the chefs, and consequently, they begin talking to the strangers standing right next to them. It encourages a fluid, dynamic mingling that a static buffet actively prevents.
A seated dinner definitely prevents it too. You're just stuck next to Uncle Bob for 2 hours.
Precisely. It breaks down those physical and social barriers.
It's honestly the house party phenomenon scaled up. Because at any good house party, regardless of the size of the house, every single person eventually ends up crammed into the kitchen.
Every single time.
The kitchen is the energetic center. So by bringing the literal kitchen into the ballroom or the outdoor tent, you inject that same magnetic energy into a massive event.
It transforms passive consumers into active participants. However, the theater of live cooking does introduce a significant risk.
Oh, like...
Well, if the stage isn't set perfectly, the illusion collapses entirely. Like if a caterer rolls a commercial stainless steel pizza oven with branding on the side into a crystal chandelier ballroom.
Oh no, that would look terrible.
The elegance evaporates instantly. It just looks like a massive catering error.
Okay, yeah, this is where aesthetics become a really dangerous trap. You can have the most incredible culinary setup, but if it causes visual cognitive dissonance, the guest perception of the food plummets before they even take a bite.
Exactly. The styling is critical.
And the sources dive heavily into this under the rustic aesthetic appeal and elegant presentation sections. revealing that the physical styling of the station is arguably just as important as the menu itself.
The text mentions incorporating raw, natural elements, so things like wooden tables, fresh herbs in terracotta pots, and warm amber lighting.
It explicitly dictates positioning the oven itself as a stunning centerpiece, too.
Yes, there is a deliberate aesthetic tension at play there. You are contrasting the raw, elemental violence of fire and wood with the highly refined, chic presentation of a modern wedding.
It's like picking up a rustic, high-end Italian villa and dropping it directly into the venue. The visual design psychology is just working overtime here.
It really is.
The warmth of the lighting, the organic textures of those olive wood serving boards, the vibrant greens of the fresh basil, these elements ground the formality of the event in something deeply authentic.
And when the text talks about positioning the pizza oven in a visible area, it's not merely a logistical directive for serving, it's a strategic design choice.
Right, because it has to look good. Every touch point has to reinforce the elevated nature of the event.
The source specifically highlights stylish serving boards, personalized menus, and decorative signage for a reason. This completely removes the association of pizza with cheap cardboard boxes.
Yeah, nobody wants a greasy cardboard box vibe at their wedding.
You're reading a beautifully typeset, heavy cardstock menu. You're selecting a bespoke flavor profile. And you're being served from a piece of handcrafted wood. The framing entirely changes the perceived value of the object.
Okay, well, let's talk about the object itself, then the culinary canvas. Because visual warmth and Italian villa aesthetics are ultimately meaningless if the food is mediocre.
Absolutely true.
If they pull a soggy, lukewarm slice out of that beautiful glowing oven, the cognitive dissonance destroys the entire illusion anyway.
The product has to match the packaging.
Right. And the source material goes into granular detail about the menu options, but honestly, it reads a bit like a standard menu. We need to look at the culinary mechanisms at play here.
The menu structure provided in the text is actually where the concept truly proves its viability in a large-scale hospitality setting. It divides the offerings into distinct categories to manage both expectations and scale.
So the text lists the classic favorites. You've got the margarita with fresh basil, the pepperoni with mozzarella, the 4-cheese blend. These are your baseline crowd pleasers.
You always need those anchors.
Yeah. But then we hit the gourmet options, and this is where the fine dining translation really happens. Truffle mushroom with arugula, prosciutto with fig and goat cheese, BBQ chicken with caramelized onions.
Those sound incredible.
I know, I'm getting hungry just listing them. Let's break down the science of why this works, though. A traditional catering oven operates at, what, maybe 400 or 450 degrees Fahrenheit?
Usually, yes. It bakes the food.
Right, it bakes. But a true wood-fired pizza oven operates at upwards of 900 degrees.
And that intense heat is the critical variable here. It triggers the Maillard reaction, which is the chemical reaction between amino acids and reducing sugars that gives brown food its distinctive flavor at an incredibly accelerated rate.
It's so fast.
Very fast. In a 900-degree environment, a Neapolitan-style dough, which typically has a very high hydration percentage, sometimes 65 to 70% water, cooks in roughly 90 seconds.
90 seconds. That's unbelievable.
Yeah. The water rapidly turns to steam, which creates those massive airy bubbles in the crust. Meanwhile, the intense ambient heat chars the exterior, creating this complex, slightly bitter blistering that contrasts perfectly with the rich toppings.
And the flavor science of those toppings is doing heavy lifting, too. Take the truffle mushroom pizza, for example.
A classic high-end choice.
Truffle oil contains a compound called bismethylthioethane, which is just intensely earthy and umami-rich. So when you combine that deep umami profile with the peppery, fresh bite of raw arugula, which they place on the pizza after it exits the oven, right?
Yes, exactly. So it doesn't wilt instantly.
Right. So you're hitting multiple sensory receptors simultaneously. The brain codes that specific flavor complexity as luxury. It satisfies the fine dining expectation without requiring a white tablecloth.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, though, what we're really analyzing with these menus is the absolute necessity of extreme adaptability in modern hospitality.
Adaptability is key right now.
Yes. Tastes vary, but more critically, dietary restrictions are arguably the single greatest friction point in event planning today.
Oh, absolutely. Anyone who has planned a dinner for more than 10 people recently knows this nightmare firsthand.
It's so stressful.
You have one person who is gluten-free, one who is vegan, one who is lactose intolerant. And in a traditional plated dinner scenario, the caterer often has to create an entirely separate, disjointed meal for those individuals.
And it usually shows.
It really does. The main guests get this beautifully composed beef Wellington, and the vegan guest gets like a sad roasted portobello mushroom that looks like it was plated as an afterthought.
Which creates this weird hierarchy of dining experiences. It isolates the guests.
Yeah, it makes them feel like a burden. But
Yeah.
the sources highlight the dietary-friendly choices section for these pizza stations. So gluten-free crusts, vegan cheese and toppings, dairy-free alternatives.
The architectural brilliance of the pizza station is that it inherently allows for absolute customization within the exact same format.
That's the magic of it. A gluten-free, vegan pizza comes out of the exact same 900-degree oven with the exact same theatrical flair and looks just as rustic and gourmet as the prosciutto and fig pie.
Exactly. Every guest receives the same baseline visual and social experience. It completely eliminates that hierarchy we were just talking about.
It seamlessly integrates dietary needs into the main event, rather than making it a side issue.
It is a radically inclusive way to dine. However, this level of customization introduces a pretty severe operational threat.
Okay, wait, I'm stuck on the logistics here now that you mention it. If an artisan oven holds, say, 3 pizzas at a time, and they take roughly 2 minutes each to cook and rotate.
You're doing the math.
I'm doing the math. You're looking at an absolute maximum output of maybe 90 pizzas an hour, assuming perfect efficiency and 0 transition time between pies.
Which is a very generous assumption.
Right, so for a 200-person wedding, you're looking at over a 2-hour wait for the last table to eat. How does a caterer not mathematically fail here?
It's a huge risk.
A beautifully customized artisan pizza is incredible right up until the moment you have 150 angry people staring at a long line, experiencing the dreaded buffet bottleneck.
You have just identified the primary reason why amateur execution of this trend results in absolute disaster. It is a massive queuing theory problem.
A great menu is instantly ruined by a terrible line.
Exactly. The source material specifically addresses this under Tips for a Seamless Pizza Station Wedding, focusing heavily on flow and timing.
So how do you manage the math? Are they, like, par-baking the crusts beforehand to save time?
No, because par baking compromises the cellular structure of the dough. It ruins the very artisan quality we just spent all this time discussing.
Okay, so that's out. Then how do they do it?
The solution is rooted in continuous flow methodology rather than batch processing. A traditional restaurant kitchen operates like a batch processing factory. An order comes in, it moves through discrete stations, and goes out.
Right.
But a high-volume pizza station must operate as continuous flow assembly line.
Meaning the oven isn't cooking individual, made-to-order requests one by one.
Correct. The chefs are constantly turning out a carefully calculated ratio of the classic and gourmet options. They're anticipating demand based on the crowd size.
Oh, I see.
And then they maintain a small percentage of oven capacity specifically for those dietary requests we talked about. But to achieve this for a large crowd, a single oven is mathematically insufficient.
Yeah, the math just doesn't work for one oven.
The strategy requires multiple stations and deliberate spatial planning. You have to physically disperse the crowd by placing stations at different points in the venue.
Ah, so you don't just have one massive line forming at the back of the room.
Exactly. You utilize Little's law of queuing theory to balance the arrival rate of guests with the service rate of the ovens.
Which means the caterer isn't just a cook anymore. They are a traffic engineer.
They really are. The text mentions maintaining a steady flow, which implies a highly choreographed dance between the prep cook stretching the dough, the master pizziolo managing the complex thermodynamics of the oven floor so it doesn't lose heat under constant use, and the expediter managing the crowd.
That is intense. And furthermore, the crowd management is subtly aided by the drink pairings, isn't it? The text dives into pairing the food with wine, craft beer, and signature cocktails.
Yes, pairing drinks isn't just about flavor, it's actually a diversion tactic.
A diversion tactic. I love that.
If a guest is holding a beautifully crafted cocktail or a complex glass of wine, their perception of wait time actively decreases.
They're happy, they're distracted, but the flavor pairings are crucial to that cohesive narrative too. Like a robust tannic red wine cuts through the rich fat of a truffle mushroom and cheese pizza perfectly.
It does. Or a crisp, highly carbonated craft pilsner cleanses the palate right after the spicy cured fat of a pepperoni slice.
Exactly. Or maybe a bespoke cocktail that utilizes the exact same botanical elements. Perhaps a basil smash mirroring the fresh herbs used on the pizza station.
It creates a closed-loop culinary narrative that elevates the entire experience.
But let's look at the reality of actually pulling this off.
Yeah.
Because listening to all of this, the absolute requirement for multiple authentic 900-degree wood-fired ovens,
Yes.
the need for chefs specifically trained in high-hydration artisan dough stretching and live-fire thermodynamics,
Very specific skill sets.
the mathematical nightmare of crowd flow and queuing theory, sourcing high-quality truffle oil, and truly good gluten-free crusts. I mean, this sounds like an overwhelming logistical nightmare for a couple to plan.
Oh, it's virtually impossible for a layman.
Having a great idea for a cool wedding food station is completely useless if you lack the infrastructure to execute it.
It is an insurmountable amount of research for a couple to do organically, and this is exactly where the source material transitions from mere inspiration to functional utility. This is where we have to analyze the software architecture enabling this trend, the Weddizer platform.
Okay, so what does this all mean? The text frames Weddizer as the ultimate digital shortcut, claiming it simplifies every step of your wedding journey. But in an era where we have unlimited access to wedding blogs, Pinterest, TikTok, whatever, what friction is this platform actually solving?
It solves the paradox of choice. We live in an era of intense information overload.
So true.
If you type wedding catering or pizza wedding into a search engine, you are hit with a tidal wave of fragmented, unstructured, and entirely unverified information.
You'll just find thousands of beautiful photos on Pinterest, right?
Exactly. But a photo does not cook a pizza. Inspiration without a mechanism for action actively paralyzes the consumer.
It's the difference between looking at a really nice blueprint and actually hiring a contractor to build the house.
Yes. The text points out that Weddizer functions as a curated ecosystem. It offers expert wedding guides and inspiration, like the articles detailing these exact food trends and decor ideas.
So the information architecture of the platform is designed to funnel the user from abstract inspiration directly to concrete logistics.
Precisely. You start in the article section on the website. That's where you explore the niche guidance, right? You read about styling a rustic chic event, or you dive into understanding the nuances of dietary inclusive menus for food and drink purposes.
Which helps the couple refine their specific niche vision.
But the critical functional component of Weddizer is its business section.
Ah, yes. The text highlights this as a standout feature, providing direct access to professional caterers.
This is where algorithmic filtering replaces organic manual labor. The platform allows couples to completely bypass the noise of unverified vendors. It connects them with reliable, experienced caterers who specialize in these highly complex setups.
Because you aren't just calling a random local pizza delivery place and asking if they own a portable wood-fired oven.
Please do not do that.
Right. If you do that, you end up with the cardboard box aesthetic and that massive queuing disaster we talked about earlier. You need direct access to professionals who fundamentally understand continuous flow service and live fire thermodynamics.
And Weddizer centralizes that entire vetting process. By bringing ideas, vetted vendors, and planning tools into one single digital environment, it offers what the text calls time-saving convenience.
And tailored recommendations based on the user's specific stylistic and budgetary parameters?
Exactly. It's taking all the guesswork out of finding the right people for your niche.
So whether you, the listener, are currently deep in the trenches of planning a massive event, or you're just mentally filing away notes for a future gathering, think about the sheer mental energy being conserved here.
It's staggering.
Attempting to manually stitch together the aesthetic design, the complex culinary requirements, and the logistical vendor vetting is a full-time job.
Which is why wedding planners charge what they do.
Exactly. But leveraging a centralized algorithmic hub like Weddizer for food and drink guidance, utilizing their article section to define your niche, and then immediately deploying their business directory to hire the exact right professionals, it transforms a logistical nightmare into a manageable, linear process.
It serves as the bridge between a highly ambitious, theoretically complex concept like a gourmet, interactive, multi-station wood-fired pizza experience and the flawless, stress-free execution of that concept on the day of the event.
It basically empowers couples to be radically ambitious with their hospitality without risking total operational failure.
It takes the risk right out of the equation.
It really does. So to recap the massive journey we've taken today, we started by examining the death of the boring, predictable, rigid wedding dinner.
Good riddance.
And we look at the psychological shift toward curated authenticity and bespoke comfort. We explored the sociology of the hearth, how bringing live culinary theater into the reception space completely changes the social dynamics and physical flow of the crowd.
It's all about engagement now.
We dug into the aesthetic tension required to make rustic elements feel luxurious, and we broke down the intense food science. From the Maillard reaction at 900 degrees to those umami flavor profiles that elevate simple ingredients to fine dining.
The science is really the backbone of it all.
Definitely. Then we tackled the mathematical realities of queuing theory and continuous flow service to prevent the dreaded buffet bottleneck.
A crucial step.
And finally, we analyzed how a digital ecosystem like Weddizer solves the paradox of choice, acting as the crucial architecture that turns unstructured inspiration from articles into perfectly executed reality through their business section.
It provides a comprehensive case study on how an entire industry is being forced to evolve, adapting to the changing psychological, social, and technological needs of the modern consumer.
It really is fascinating to watch unfold.
But looking at this shift toward interactive, visible processes, this raises an important question.
Oh, I love a good hypothetical. Where does this lead us next?
Well, we've seen how taking the actual preparation of the food, the kitchen itself, a space that has historically been hidden away out of shame or pure practicality, and moving it front and center into the reception space turns it into the primary entertainment.
Yeah, it becomes the show.
Right. It forces us to ask, what other traditionally behind-the-scenes elements of events, hospitality, or even just daily life are poised to become the center stage attractions of the future?
Oh, wow. From secret hidden kitchens to live fire theater. Once you reveal the process becomes the product itself.
Exactly.
That completely changes how we think about the architecture of literally any gathering moving forward.
Oh,
Just brilliant. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive.
always a pleasure.
To everyone listening, keep questioning the standard way of doing things. Stay curious and always stay hungry for new ideas. Catch you next time.